You're watching Inside Utah Politics.
Welcome back. Time now to debate some of the more controversial issues this session with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have Chase Thomas with the Alliance for a Better Utah and Gail Ruzicka with Utah Eagle Forum. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, a very jam-packed session, no doubt about that. Some very big issues getting a lot of attention. Let's start with the abortion bill. We had two of them, but let's focus in on the 18-week ban because that's the one most people are looking at this point.
Sure.
Gail, let's start with you. That was one of your priority bills.
That was
Why?
Definitely a priority bill because it bans abortion after 18 weeks. Anything that will save these little babies. And you know, that's at the time when they start doing the really barbaric ways of doing abortion where they dismember these little babies while they are alive and then they can feel pain. So that's wrong. It's just wrong. And so we will ban a lot of abortions that use that kind of procedure.
Chase, let's bring you in. Your group fought against this bill. Why?
Well, I mean, to start off, we weren't opposed to this bill because we favor having abortions. I think we all share the goal of reducing the number of abortions we have in the state and across the country, but we just feel there's better ways to be going about it rather than creating a stigma around women who have decided to have abortions or forcing it underground to where they're not safe. We could be better spending money on things like comprehensive sex education, better access to contraceptives, and then also just the blatant unconstitutionality of this law. It's going to immediately trigger a lawsuit. Both the ACLU and Planned Parenthood have both said that they plan to sue, and so we feel that it's a waste of taxpayer dollars to pass a law that's immediately going to be challenged.
Gail, talk about that because even supporters have not necessarily denied the fact that as the law sits now, it's unconstitutional. Talk about spending the money to fight that in court because as Chase brings up, it's already promised that a legal battle is going to ensue.
First of all, it doesn't cost the state anything. There's a fiscal note of 0 on this bill if they win. As long as we win,
we could be looking at legal fees, though.
Well, only if we lose. That's the only way we'd have to pay the legal fees. We've got a different court now. We've got Arkansas with the same bill as Utah. They passed on the same day. They're both headed to the court at the same time, which splits the circuit and makes it very favorable. This way this bill has been written and the intent language that goes with it, we have a very good chance of winning this. But you know what? We're talking about spending maybe $2 million to save babies, to save little unborn children. I don't even know how we can put a price tag on that. We've never put a price tag on saving children.
I want to ask this question of both of you and give both of you a chance to respond. Is this eventually an avenue to overturn Roe v. Wade? Chase, let's start with you.
I believe it is. Across the country, as the Supreme Court has become more conservative, you see liberal states expanding access to abortion and conservative states restricting access. And I think it's really to test the limits of where this court stands on Roe v. Wade and the rest of the court cases that have come after.
Gail, is that the ultimate goal here?
Well, you know, right now New York has passed a law that says they can kill those little babies right up till the minute they're born. I mean, just before they're born, they can kill that baby in New York. Nobody wants that. But isn't it interesting? We have laws that allow that, but we don't have laws that allow us to save the children. Maybe sometimes we need to make some challenges, whether it challenges Roe versus Wade or just continues in that direction of saving more and more babies. We should be standing for life and saving babies, not killing babies just before they're born.
Chase, a lot said in the debate. This was a very emotional debate. We heard it a lot on the Capitol. A lot centered around, look, these tests that Roe v. Wade are based on and other court cases are old. We know new information now. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the test that Roe v. Wade had was actually a good test, viability. And sure, that has changed over the decades since Roe v. Wade was decided, but it still hasn't gotten to the point of 18 weeks. And we've seen that standard tested because even in Utah, I believe it was either 20 or 21 weeks, that was struck down years ago. So I think, just this 18 week is too far of a push, yeah.
I believe that case was in the mid-90s, if I'm not mistaken. That's a point, though, that the ACLU has picked up and looked at and said, look, we've tried this before, and it was shot down by the courts.
Again, that was years ago, a different court. That was clear back in 1991. and this is today. We now have a window into the womb, and we know what these little babies are doing. We know that they can feel pain. We know that they have fingernails and that they are breathing embryonic fluid. We know that babies are alive and they are living children, and we should be saving their lives.
I want to move on to another controversial bill, and that was the one to ban conversion therapy in the state of Utah. It was drastically changed in committee and ended up stalling on the House floor. Chase, talk about the underlying bill and why you supported that.
So conversion therapy is an extremely dangerous and harmful practice. LGBTQ youth over the years have been subjected to this therapy that tells them that they can change who they are. And Equality Utah and others brought forward facts about how this has led to high rates of suicide among LGBTQ youth. And so the bill would have banned all versions of that. And we support that just because we know that it's not something that can change, and we want to protect these youth who are extremely vulnerable in our community.
That committee hearing in the House Judiciary Committee went on for 2 days. Emotional testimony, people lined up on both sides. You liked the amendment.
Right.
Why is that?
Well, because the argument here was on the definition of conversion therapy. The substitute bill had a different definition, but it was a very good definition. That definition would ban anything that caused pain and discomfort, electrical shock, or even causing children to vomit and do things that are physical, and it banned that. It also banned the therapists for even being able to promise or make commitments that they could change their sexual orientation. So that was also banned. But at the same time, it allowed therapists to talk to children who want to be talked to, who have questions, and they can ask them what their end result would be. What do you want? And work toward that end result. The definition, the original definition, would not allow therapists to have that conversation. It banned what therapists could say that talked therapy. That's just wrong. Children should be able to get help to get through whatever their problems are. And we had a lot of people testifying how if they hadn't been able to have therapy, that they were suicidal. It was having therapy that got them through those suicidal tendencies. So, the discussion on suicide was on both sides. And it depends on the therapist and how that therapist helps them get through that.
Chase, talk about that point, because we did hear people say, look, I went through this and it saved my life. That's what they say. So why should someone not have at least the ability to talk about it?
People would be able to talk about it with their therapists. The original bill would have allowed a child to go to a therapist and say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I want. And the therapist then facilitates that discussion. What conversion therapy bans is getting rid of is the therapist having an opinion, the therapist telling them that they should change, because it's not the job of the therapist to do that.
Okay, I have a couple seconds left real quick. The sponsor, other advocates say therapists will be crafty, they'll work around the amendment. Your thoughts on that?
Therapists will do what the law tells them to do. Therapists are not going to risk their license. And those therapists that also came and testified talked about what this would do to them. This would have a chilling effect on their ability to even practice their profession. Why would we ever pass laws that would make that happen, that therapists can't practice their profession? That's just wrong. That we came up with, there was a good substitute bill that would have banned conversion therapy, and right now the governor would be ready to sign that, banning it, and it was that other side that wouldn't accept that, and that's just wrong.
We're going to have to end it there. I wanted to bring up the Constitutional Convention because that's where the two of you actually come together and say, let's fight that thing. So unfortunately we ran out of time, but you guys aren't always on the opposite side of the fence.
We can join forces sometime.
Yeah, that's what happens up there at the legislature.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.